Hi, everyone. How are you? Hi, everyone. How are you?
Doing great. Excited to be here with you.
Good, 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 good. We'll give it just a second. I see some folks. Go ahead and type in the chat. We'll give it just a second. I know we're getting kicked off a little bit late, but that is all good. All right, so I don't know if the 𝗂𝗲𝗶𝗀𝗶 team has anything to say. If not, I can take it over and start sharing. Welcome everyone to a Grow with Google Digital Coaches webinar. Who is in the room? Please let us know. We want to hear from you. If you could just throw in the chat your name and where you're joining from, that would be great. We want to know where you're joining from. And I will see if I can, I will need slide sharing permission. All right, so we're waiting for folks to join, but while we're kicking off and getting started, if you could just throw in the chat where you're joining from. Yes, I love to see you all camera on. Just it seems like a couple technical difficulties. Again, I will need slide sharing permission, but we can kick it off in just a minute. And we are getting the details. Hi, everyone. If you just joined, we're kicking off in just a minute. We're slightly getting started just a couple minutes late, but we're really excited. Design thinking is exciting. How many of you have used design thinking before for your business? Okay, great. I'm just getting details. All right, it is Wednesday. I'm excited. You all are in the midst of a datathon. That is exciting. 𝗂𝗲𝗶𝗀𝗶 is doing some great work. I love anything that supports and provides more resources to women entrepreneurs. Hello. So while we're kicking off, we're waiting for folks to join. I think there were some technical difficulties with the Zoom link, so we'll give it just a second. But again, everyone, hi, my name is Angelina Darrisaw. I'm excited to be here, and I see 𝗂𝗲𝗶𝗀𝗶 is on, so I'm not sure if that is you, Farhana, or if it's someone else on the 𝗂𝗲𝗶𝗀𝗶 team. Just a reminder that I will need access to share screen. It might be Tanzim. Let me know if you can allow me to share my screen. Would love to share slides.
Angelina, hi, this is Farhana. I am really sorry about the technical glitches. I'm not sure what's been happening. And 𝗂𝗲𝗶𝗀𝗶, if you are here, please give me a call back. And please give Angelina the share screen permission.
Okay, no worries. Hi, Farhana. It's great to see you.
So
Technical difficulties happen.
Yes.
We are, oh, great. I have screen sharing access now. Great.
Perfect.
So I think we're still going to wait for a couple more folks to join, or how would you like to proceed, Farhana?
I would give it like just a couple of minutes, just because a lot of people got confused and started sending email. And
Okay.
When were you able to join? At what time?
About 12:10 maybe. It looked like I was in a waiting room for a while.
Okay, I really wonder what happened. So give us just 2 minutes. We can be interactive meanwhile if you want to.
Yeah, of course. Those of you who are here,
Yeah.
Those of you who are here, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us about your business. While we're getting started, if you want, you even have the ability to come off mute, and we'd love to know just where you're joining from and what your business is.
Yeah, you don't have to be off camera. I mean, on camera, if you don't want to be. Just say something.
Oh, great. We have folks joining from Nashville, Tennessee. So hi, how are you? 𝗲𝗂𝗶𝗂𝗶𝗂𝗿, maybe I'm hopefully saying it right. I'm a first-year grad student in biomedical, let me put my glasses on, in biomedical data science. That's so awesome. Thank you so much. All right, who else is in the room? We want to hear from you. Well, I will tell you, I'm originally from New York City. I've lived in New York for most of my life. And for the last year and a half, I've been stationed in Miami. So that's where I'm sitting right now, in Miami, Florida. I'm joining from Miami, but I am actually going back to New York soon. So I'm really excited about that. That's something that's bringing me joy. I also have with us on the line, who you will see in the chat helping out, 𝗳cie𝘂𝗰𝗵𝗂𝗶𝗀𝗿. She is our West Texas digital coach. So we'll tell you about the digital coaches program. I'll give you a quick overview. Some of the things that we do are we give free training, like the experience you're about to have right now, to entrepreneurs from under or historically excluded backgrounds, Black, Latinx backgrounds. So we're really excited about that. Oh, we have a Texas person in the room. Okay. We've got Len, who's an international grad student who's working on building their entrepreneurship. Okay, good. Ideas on how to get started. This workshop will definitely help you, Len. We also have someone joining us from Bangladesh. Love to see it. A fourth-year student. So lots of grad students in the room. This is great. This is so great. Okay, awesome. We'll give it just a couple more minutes. Yeah, so the Digital Coaches Program has been doing work to offer free training to help build and grow entrepreneurs and help strengthen their business since 2018. So I am really in love with the work that we do because I like being in rooms like this of business owners every day. So that is really awesome. Awesome. How's the Datathon going for you all? The hackathon. Oh, you're muted.
The Datathon hasn't started yet. We started our first workshop. It went really well on the first day. We had about 70 people, and so we have about 300 people who are going to join us for the Datathon competition itself. And the first workshop was interactive, and it was about motivation and why. And then the next part was the technical know-how, what's going to happen, what to expect. So it was really cool to see all these young girls interact with each other from all over the world, actually. That was encouraging.
I love that. I love that so much.
You'll be surprised to hear some of these girls. They are so cool and so young, bright and enthusiastic about different things they're doing. So I'm really glad. And thank you so much, Angelina, for your time, and the whole Google team who are here. And again, my apologies, but we're trying to fix it. We may have to bring you over again.
Okay, I understand.
All right.
Well,
Right,
even still,
we can go ahead and start.
kick it off.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So that's what we'll do then. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share, okay. I'm going to share a tab if I can figure out how to do this. Oh, wow. Okay, wait, just give me 1 second. It's always, every new platform is different. This is definitely like something I have not seen before. Just give me 1 second. But really glad you all are here, excited through some of the core concepts that we are going through today around design thinking. And it is not letting me share just a tab. This is so different. Okay. Well, you all, let me close out everything because it looks like the only option is for me to share my whole screen. So I will be sharing my whole screen with you all. Let me go ahead and do that. Okay. Oh, I see what the issue is. Okay. There is, okay, I will have to quit and rejoin. Farhana, I'm so sorry. There was a setting I had to change. Just give me 1 second.
Oh, no problem, Angelina. Take your time.
So I'm gonna assign you as the host. We are back. We are good to go. I just need host permission again. Farhana, you should be able to grant that to me and we will be good to go. I saw some folks in the chat.
Got it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I saw folks in the chat from many different places. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. And it is time for us, 1 second. It's time for us to dive into some amazing concepts around design thinking for entrepreneurs. Okay, so let's get excited. Some technical difficulties never stopped anybody. That is just the season and the environment we are in. So it is all good. I'm really excited again to be with you all here today. And so today we're going to just chat through design thinking principles that entrepreneurs need to know. Hopefully this will be, can you all still see my screen? Oops,
It looks great, Angelina.
Okay, great. So I'll kick it off just by introducing myself. I want to let you all know who I am and why we are here to talk about what we're here to talk about today. So I'm Angelina Darrisaw. I am the National Grow with Google Digital Coach. I'm also the owner of my own company. So I'm an entrepreneur, just like many of you are in this room and many of you are hoping to be. I've run my business for 7 years, really excited about it. And additionally, I help out with other entrepreneurs by offering free trainings just like this to communities of color, and really excited about the work that we do. So we have quite a lot to discuss today. I want us to first just dive in, having a conversation around what is design thinking? How do you understand your audience in this way? And how does it help? How does better understanding your audience help you better understand how to solve problems for your audiences? How do you identify their challenges? And then we want to make sure we're finding solutions to the challenges of our audiences. So to begin, I always like to remind everyone that we'll share some things that you may want to create some sheets and some docs on your own. And in order to do that, you want to make sure you're signed into your Google account for all of the activities today. So you just go to your browser, type google.com, and make sure in the right hand you're signed in. You would want to make sure you go through and click on the Google apps. So those 9 dots that are on the right-hand side of the screen, some people call them a hamburger, some people call it a checkerboard. It's had different names, but those 9 dots are essentially what helps bring you over to a huge ecosystem of different Google applications that will help your business. You want to go ahead and click on one of the Google apps and start a new file. All right, so that is how you access your Google Docs. Right there from your Google Drive, you click and get a new doc, and you're going to start a blank document, and you can take your notes for this session in that document today. So let's begin by really breaking down this term that we're throwing at you today. What is design thinking? If you know what design thinking is, go ahead and put it in the chat, and I'm going to check. And I see a note. I'm not as familiar with Zoom, so I'm going to push that over to oh, and my video is also not running. I'm going to push that over to the 𝗲𝗏𝗂𝗶𝘀𝗄 team. If you could respond in the chat how to set up the captioning features in Zoom, that will be really helpful. Thank you so much. All right, now to go back to what we were discussing, we want to think about what is design thinking. So it is a methodology that designers use to break down really difficult problems. And it's been used in a number of different capacities. One, to brainstorm really important societal issues. So for example, how kids are going to get healthy school lunches and get them to actually eat them was one way in which design thinking was used. It also is used to come up with your first business idea. When we were first getting started, a couple of you mentioned in the chat that you are not started a business yet, but that you're hoping to start a business. So design thinking is really useful when it comes to identifying what your first business idea should be. It isn't just for this though, it's also important for you to be thinking about how do you connect with your customers both now and in the future. So there's two terms that we think about. We think about things that are technologically feasible and also economically feasible. And when we use these terms throughout the presentation, one of the things I want you to keep in mind is that what this means can change for you depending on different contexts. So for example, as a student, what's technologically feasible and what is economically feasible be very different than when I am further along in my career and I have access to more resources. So that's one of the things I want you all to keep in mind. But it's always important to recognize that design thinking is going to give you a framework that's going to be useful to you even when you don't have a lot of resources available to you. So we'll talk through that. Now let's really break down what we're thinking about when we're thinking about this methodology. So there's 5 phases, and just so you know, this is a whole framework that was created by 2 organizations, the educational institution, Stanford University, and a company called IDEO, and it has been used to create a lot of different projects of different sizes. So it starts with these 5 phases within the methodology. The first phase is about empathizing. So observing who your ideal audience is, engaging with them, immersing yourself in their challenges, what are the things that they need. And so if you want to have a good design process, it all starts with really understanding the needs of your users. What are their behaviors? What are their expectations of what it is you plan to design? The second piece of it is defining. So the defining aspect is really important. You express the problem of your users in the form of their points of view. So how do they perceive it, right? And then the next piece is all about how do I ideate? How do I transition from not just thinking about the problems, but also finding solutions? It's something I say often. If you're going to bring me a problem, also bring me a solution. It may not be the right solution or the solution I'll move forward with, but when we think about problems for ourselves, for our customers, for anyone, any sort of party we're interacting with, we want to also be identifying how do we fix those problems? What are the solutions we can implement? Yes, okay, I'm seeing good things in the chat. Farhana saying, some of you are saying hi from all different parts of the world. That is so cool. All right, so we talked about what design thinking is, but how is it actually used in practice? So these, if you look at the screen, these are different products that you're using every day. You perhaps are using your television, a foot activated car door. So when I'm coming from the grocery store, for example, and I have bags of groceries in my hand, I'm putting my foot down to activate the car door so I can make sure that I don't fall all over myself or drop everything I'm carrying trying to get into my car. And then there's also things that many of us are familiar with as well, like ride sharing or home sharing apps. I've done quite a number of Airbnbs in the past couple years. So when you think about this, one of the things that stands out is these have all been solutions that have been created through companies or organizations trying to figure out how to alleviate problems for their customers. And so they then go from being things that were inventions, so to speak, to items that we can't live without in our daily lives. And often these have been created with design thinking methodology. So I want us to dive into the first phase in the design thinking process, which is empathize. And the first step in this process is for you to establish empathy. When you think about empathy, what does that mean? Go ahead and throw it in the chat. Yeah, okay, I see who is the user. So yes, when we're thinking about empathy, it is about understanding and sharing the feeling of another person. When we focus on the user, we want to think about what are the user's stories? What are their insights? What are their emotions? If we were able to put ourselves in their shoes and think about products or services as they experienced it. So when we say user in design thinking, essentially what we're saying is this is the person or the group of people that you're hoping to build a solution for. So if any of you can just think about a problem that you want a creative solution to, I'd love if you could put in the chat, who is the user you're trying to solve this problem for? Go ahead and put that in the chat. You can just type it. Who is the user you're trying to solve a problem for? Awesome. I'll wait. I'll look for responses throughout, but this is great. Yes, is the user trying to solve a problem for? So the practice of understanding this and your user well actually helps you to better characterize what are the potential issues they might be facing. And then there might be a team of issues or a combination of issues. You can break down one of those at a time and really do a deep dive into some of those issues. One example of empathy establishment can be accessibility options on devices for people with disabilities. Absolutely, love that. All right, and if any of you want to keep your comments coming in the chat, please do let me know. I'm taking a look at the chat to make sure I'm hearing from you. And when you understand your users, there might be different ways that you have thought about users in the past. Sometimes we think about things like demographic information. So gender, we might think about age, we might think about nationality, but then there are also characteristics of individuals, right? So whether or not someone is a parent is a characteristic, or a working professional. So when it comes to your user groups, you want to really be very specific so you understand that audience better and you understand what makes them tick. So for example, you might say your target audience is women of color, but that is so many people with so many different needs and very unique interests and very unique needs, right? So if you're looking to create an all natural hair care line specifically for women of color, you might want to be more targeted in explaining what it is you're seeking to create. Maybe you're looking to create something for women of color looking to have products without extra chemicals or extra toxins, or natural products due to health or allergy concerns. So that's just one way you can hone in and narrow in on who your user is. The goal here, though, is however you define your user, you want to move away from just those demographic identifiers and think more deeply about their experience and also their needs. So I'll just give one more example and then we can move on. But even for parents, that's a huge group of people. And so there's so many differences even within parents. For example, if you're a parent and you have teenagers and you're a parent with a newborn, your experience in life right now is really different. So it is important for us to recognize the difference in user groups and really be narrow. So part of this, I'd love to take a couple seconds and have you write. We won't do the full 3 minutes just in the interest of time, but I'd love for you to write in the Google Doc. If you opened up your Google Doc, I want you to try to brainstorm what your audience really needs. So first, you do have to specify who that user group is. So we asked that question a couple minutes ago. Who is a user you're trying to solve a problem for? And then after you do that, put yourself in that user's shoes. And I want you to brainstorm 5 problems, 3 to 5 problems that that user group might have on a day-to-day basis. All right, so I'll give you about a minute to do this. Everyone have their Google Doc up? Or take notes if you're using pen and paper, but I'll give you a couple minutes. Identify who your user is, yes, and then put yourself in their shoes. Put yourself in their position. What are the problems that they're facing on a day-to-day? I'll give you a couple more, like minute and a half. Yes, awesome. Okay. Give you another minute. All right, everyone, come on back. I know it didn't give you a lot of time, but the good news is you can do some of this offline on your own. Anyone wants to put in the chat or come off mute a problem that they identified? Let us know who your user is and what is a problem you identify that they're facing. Anyone, any volunteers? All right, well, I can give an example. For instance, let's just say you're looking for someone who's, I would be looking for a company who is focused on users like myself, who are busy professionals that are trying to move across the country, and how can they make the moving process more simplified for someone who is working all the time and on the go all the time. I am looking for a company to find some solutions for someone like me, right? But that's just an example. I say that to say it takes some time to really think through getting very narrow, and you can have more than one user that you're trying to solve problems for. But when you're going through this design thinking process, you really want to focus on one user group at a time so you can dive deeply into some of the challenges that they're facing. So the next step is thinking about defining a problem statement for your project. So once we have a clear example and idea in our minds of what the problems are for our users, we want to operationalize them. So in order to do so, say you put 4 or 5 problems you think your users are facing on your page. In order to operationalize them, you want to focus on just one problem at a time from that list. And then from there, you want to think about the real challenges that created for that user. Using that core problem, you're going to create a problem statement. So what is a problem statement and why do we need it? Well, it really organizes 3 key things that you need to know. It organizes what is the characteristic of the user. It helps you to articulate the user's need, so that core problem that they're identifying. And also insight, it gives insight into why the user is experiencing this need. So developing a problem statement is one of the critical parts of this design thinking process. And so to give an example and look at it. So this is an example of a problem statement. And here we have a user who is Sam, and he's a busy manager. His core problem is that he needs a way to integrate healthy eating habits. Now, Sam, I am right there with you. I have the same problem, right? And so he needs insight. The reason why he has this need is it comes from a desire to feel like he's not on a diet. He wants to eat healthily, but not feel like he is cutting out things that he really enjoys or she really enjoys. So the problem statement is telling us there are some things that we really need to know here that can help us identify solutions on how to tackle this issue for Sam. So it can be really tempting to try to insert a solution into the problems, but that is not what the design process includes. It really encourages you to do. You really want to focus just on the problem first before you start thinking about the solutions. One other tip that I will share with you is some people will find it easier to build a problem statement from the bottom up. So you start to think about the insights that are driving it, and it helps you better create how to figure this out. So for example, we have some folks joining. So for example, instead of saying something like Sam needs to learn about nutrition because he wants to have a better eating experience for lunch, and he knows that diets fail, there's a lot of emotion. So basically sharing all the context first can help you hone in and boil down to those core 3 pieces. Any questions so far? All right, well, you are encouraged to share your thoughts, your questions. We want to hear from you. The next piece will be now for you all. You have your Google Doc open. I'm going to give you some time, another couple of minutes to dive into your Google Doc. And so now that you have identified your user, some of the problems that they're facing, now it's your time to work on a problem statement. So remember the list of challenges you came up with. Think about that. I'll put the previous slide back so you can see the template. And then I want you to go ahead and come up with your own problem statement. So I'm going to give you another minute to do this. Minute and a half. Go ahead and write out a problem statement for a user you're trying to solve a problem for. All right, another minute or so. All right, I'll give you 10 more seconds. Start to close out your problem statement. I would love to hear from one of you if you feel comfortable sharing. All right, we can come on back. Anyone want to share a problem statement they have? You can put it in the chat. You can come off mute. Okay. Well, I will do it as if I was working on how to solve my moving problem, right? So I would say something along the lines of, Angelina is a busy business owner who needs an organized way to move because she's constantly traveling and working long hours and cannot do it all herself. Like, that would be my problem statement. And then other insights I would be thinking about is trust with your things, maybe thinking about cost concerns. So that all comes in how we start to ideate. Anyone else want to share before we move on? All right, well, the third process, or the third phase rather, in the design process is ideating. And so now that we've empathized, we've chosen our user, we've defined what we think what their issue is, and we've created a problem statement. The next step is the fun part. Because as much as problems, it can be great to go on and on about problems. For me, where I find the most joy is thinking of solutions. Actually, I will tell you one icebreaker that I've done with a couple of groups of friends is we'll just sit and like 30 seconds, share a business idea and just how we would monetize it. So if you have an idea, then everyone asks how you monetize it. And we just go in rounds and come up with crazy business ideas and how we monetize it, how we solve a problem, and how we're going to make money off of it. So it is really fun to ideate. And these are some, where all the solutions happen and where they come to mind. So I want to share with you a popular ideation activity that Google uses in a lot of the design sprints that they have and how they design their own products. So using your Google Docs, you could insert a 2x4 table, which would give you 8 boxes. You'll see another menu that pops up. It can have, to the right of it, there are block icons in it. So you can choose blocks across to add the 2x4 table to your Google Doc. If anyone needs help with this, let us know. You can also do this manually by hand and fold a piece of paper into 8 rectangles. So in each section of your table or your rectangle, write out a different idea for how you would solve your users' problems. Come up with 8 different ideas, different ways to build solutions. And so the point here is to practice letting go. Don't try to think about what's wrong with the idea just yet. Don't worry about if it's feasible. Think big, think very creatively. And so the beauty of this process is it's very freeing. We can let our mind go wild with ideas. And sometimes the craziest ideas are actually the best ideas. And so it is good to think without constraints when you have the opportunity. So one of the examples that I brought up earlier was targeting women of color looking for natural hair products. Now, you may already have ideas about the services or products you want to offer, and there's different ways can offer them solutions to their challenges. For example, some thoughts here could be create an all natural hair care line for women of color. Another thought could be not offering a product, but instead alleviating the challenge and finding all natural hair care products through a database or through an app. Another idea could be open a salon where you carry these products. So there's lots of different ways to address this. And so I say that to say, when you're brainstorming of solutions, it may not be the solution that's most intuitive. That might be the one you want to move forward with. You should really give yourself the opportunity to have limitless thinking and ideate as much as possible. So I'm going to push you again. You'll have another minute of quiet time. I want you to use your Google Docs, or if you have a sheet of paper that you folded into 8, and I want you to write 8 possible solutions to the problem statement you came up with. Any idea, any solution that comes to mind is a good idea and a good solution. All right, I'll give you just a minute and a half. Right? No idea is too crazy. What you might think of now is something your competitor might bring to life in the future. So you want to recognize every possibility. All right, just 20 more seconds. Start to close up. All right. Does anyone want to share one of the ideas that they came up with? Okay. Well, that is all right. Please keep working on this on your own for one of the problems you have. The next thing I want to talk about is what prototyping looks like. So remember, we've gone through a lot of steps so far. We've empathized, we've thought about our user, what their problems are. We've better defined the problem by coming up with a problem statement. Then we ideated on solutions. Now, the next step is we have to really prototype and see what creating those solutions would look like. So what does that look like? They are inexpensive. Have you all probably, as you're doing the Datathon or have worked in other spaces, may have heard the term MVP. Prototype is something else I think about when it comes to this. It's a scaled down version of the solution that you've created. So you can do different prototypes. And as you build different prototypes, you're going to either accept them, you're going to improve upon them, you might re-examine some things, or you might reject them. But in doing this, it's an experimental stage. You are essentially here to create a workable product, but it's not going to be just yet. This is how you get feedback to see how you can best serve your users and solve problems for them as you prototype this out. So you'll get a better understanding of different constraints that are inherent in the products and in the features that you might not have seen before. So this is a really critical stage to prototype it and test it out. Once you've collected enough data from your prototyping stage, then you start to create the minimum viable products. That's the next step. This is the simplest version of a workable product. It's developed with core features that will satisfy those early adopters, but it also has low risk for investors. So your minimum viable product should be cost effective, and it should be quick to develop while you're still providing the basic functions that you've decided on. And you'll have an idea of what your early adopters or your first users what they're looking for thanks to the prototyping stage. So, okay, let's look at the picture. If your goal was to create a vehicle that could take you from point A to point B, there are 5 boxes here in that top example that represent each iteration of a prototype. The first iteration contains just the wheel. The second has 4 wheels and 2 axles. And then the third image is merely the base of the vehicle. The fourth has built it out, but there's no steering wheel. And the last is a fully built out functioning vehicle. There's so much you can do with just a wheel. There isn't much you can do with just a wheel, or with 2 wheels and an axle, or with just the body of the car. So the only viable product would be that fully functioning vehicle with the bells and whistles. So that is what's really important to focus on here. Now, on the flip side, if you were creating an MVP that solves the problem for your audience in the simplest way, getting from point A to point B, you could think of a couple of different iterations. You see in the first image, a skateboard. In the second image, more of a scooter. In the third image, a bicycle. But maybe you want more speed, so you move to a motorcycle. But then you hear later that folks are looking for a vehicle. So you add in some additional pieces to create that vehicle. But basically, you're only able to do this after talking through these different prototyping phases to best understand what works for your users. It's important to note that your minimum viable product is not your end goal, but it's one of the steps that you'll take to get there. So here you want to continue to stay very flexible, not too tied to any features, and be more focused on the user than the features that you like. So building out rough prototypes and learn how to make them better would be your next homework assignment. on that crazy eights, I would challenge you to pick one of your ideas and flesh out how you would build the solution. What is the technology that's needed? What's the time required? What resources do you have available to do this? And then last, but definitely not least, and very important, would be the testing phase. So the testing phase is the final stage of the design thinking process. We won't be able to have an opportunity to practice this together, but in real life, you'd want to test out your solution. You'd want to evaluate it. And depending on how it goes, you might have to go back and repeat other phases. So testing is an iterative process. It means you continue to go back. It means you continue to tweak things, to make changes, and you might even decide to scrap the solution and go with a different one you identified during the prototyping phase. So now that you've learned the differences between the phases and the process, you might be wondering, how do I use it? How do I take an idea I have and use design thinking to make that idea more successful? So I want to give you an example of some other business owners who did this themselves. This is Sunrise Coffee, and here we have Juani Romero, who is a former barista. She opened her first coffee shop on the first day of the Great Recession of 2008, and now she owns 3 cafes. While Juani was initially hesitant to tackle new digital tools, her online presence became super important during COVID to her. And it was really critical. She knew she needed a way in Las Vegas to keep her company open. And so she took a look at the changing needs of her customers as well as her employees. And as she did that, it also brought to mind that there were also new customers that were coming. Critical to the health of the community, first responders needed more coffee. So she took her business almost entirely digital by selling her sustainably sourced beans online. She added web functionality that allowed visitors to donate coffee to first responders and healthcare workers. And then she would kick in 2 additional bags for each one that was donated. She was really amazed by the response, and it was so overwhelming that even the media took notice. So that sense of community and her desire to help others was important, and she redesigned her business to support others who had new needs and leveraging new tools to deliver different products to her audience. So I hope that example inspired you. I hope you're getting excited as you think through new solutions you might want to create for your customers or your potential customers. And I just want to recap the 5 stages that we discussed today. The first is we want to make sure that you empathize, that you step into the shoes of your user base, identify what their challenges are. Then you want to define. You want to think about what are core problems from the perspective of those users. What are the challenges they're facing? What insights can you draw from this? And don't think in solutions just yet, because you want to think in solutions in the ideate phase. That's where you start to brainstorm and you give yourself license to come up with as many solutions as possible. Last, or almost last, you want to prototype. This is where you bring the ideas into the real world, and then you test. You test these ideas out, you learn, you iterate, and you keep trying until you find the solution you want to go with. So I want to take a pause. I want you all to go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back. You followed along. We had a great session today, and hopefully you can take these principles even as you come up with some new ideas during your Datathon. I'd also just like to call out, we have many resources available for you. So short free courses available at 𝗔.co/primer. You can also grow your digital skills by coming back to another Grow with Google Digital Coaches workshop, grow.google/digital coaches. Vicki will put it in the chat. And I always like to say, me presenting is my gift to you, and I just need one gift back, and that would be feedback. So if you could go ahead and fill out this survey at 𝗔.co/grow/digital coach survey, We would greatly appreciate your responses there. Any questions? All right, well, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and kick it back over to Farhana to close us out. Everyone, make sure you fill out the survey. Awesome. All right, well, you all, thank you so much for your time. We really enjoyed being here with you today. And if you have any questions, just reach out to us and let us know. Thank you.